Good morning. Dobrý den.
Yes.
My name is Christina Schreiber, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this dialogue number 2, Building Resilience for a Sustainable Urban Future. I will be the one leading you through the program and the discussions, and I would like to explain you briefly how we're going to proceed. This dialogue is divided in 2 parts. We're planning that it takes place from 10 to 12, more or less. I will have the pleasure to give a brief introduction summary, and then we will listening to opening remarks. And at continuation, we will have 2 different panels. And at the end, you will have the chance also to participate in a question and answer round. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that urban areas must continually adapt to various challenges in an integrated and holistic manner. At the same time, use such shocks and threats as inflection points for transformation of the society to better future. Urban resilience should not just imply being able to withstand adversity, but without really changing the underlying conditions that created such adverse situation in the first place. For example, embracing the notion of resilience that seems to favor endurance, more as palliative, or maintaining the status quo. Rather, it should be transformative. The idea of questioning and challenging the perspectives on and capacities for resilience is to go beyond building back better, to building forward differently, in a manner that does not preserve the existing state of affairs, but a real change that confronts structural inequalities in an uneven society and represents a development gain. A further commonality is that municipalities are constrained by limited resources. Evidence-based decision-making is a powerful tool for cities navigating a multitude of challenges, including to enhance resilience and adapt to the effects of climate change with the limited funds available. On the other hand, the criticality of urban and climate resilience has gained awareness and momentum. What is imperative now is to think and work in new ways, to upskill successful practices to support cities, especially in SIDS, LDACs and LMICs, which face high exposure and vulnerability, governance deficits, and limited existing internal capacities and resources. Resilience building should drive towards, safeguard, and sustain development goals. This transformative resilience holds the potential to turn the disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic into opportunities for growth and innovation that addresses existing challenges in city, particularly for urban weak spots, such as slums and informal settlements that disproportionately suffer from the impacts of climate change and natural disaster. So it is a great pleasure now, on behalf of UN Habitat, to invite to the opening remarks for the session Mr. Daniel Wasik, Head of Urban Unit in the Ministry of Development Funds and Regional Policy, Government of Poland. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. If you have the interpretation sets ready, please prepare them as I will do my quick intervention in Polish. So, dzień dobry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Wąsik. It is my great pleasure to open dialogue number 2, Building Resilience for Sustainable Futures for Cities. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic did in fact change the way we perceive the world and the space in which we live, but also we knew about this earlier, how sensitive this space is, because for several years people have been moving from rural areas to urban areas. And this urbanization is very encumbering for the environment because our planet never before has had to deal with such a huge weight of settlements of people in one large area. And thinking about smart urbanization and these very complicated mechanisms governing the cities, there is a concept of urban resilience, meaning this resilience of cities. And the growing of cities means that they eat up more and more resources and produce more and more waste. And I'm not just talking about garbage. I'm talking about emissions of CO2 into the atmosphere, other chemical compounds from sources of heat, with which we heat our homes, and forms of transport, so vehicles as well, cars. And to a large extent, cities feel climate change. The lower air quality, higher temperatures, or quality of potable water have created a situation that we didn't only have to face climate change, but now we also have the pandemic. And urban resilience responds to this. This was first founded, this concept, in the 1970s. It's never been more adequate than today. And resilience means that we don't just anticipate and respond to the problems, but we also create a basis for long-term sustainable development. And to be able to create such a base, we need a strategic approach. This strategic approach requires a lot of stakeholders, and we need to start with cooperation from the central level and the local governments. And UN Habitat, as well as the European Union, we emphasize the role of the local urban policies, because this can create a framework and plans and changes, finances, as well as legislative changes that we have. And resilience helps us understand what changes also may come about and what we need to prepare for. And I believe that this panel, with such interesting voices, as well as the events of today, will help bring a response to these very, very pressing questions. Thank you very much, and I wish you very, very insightful deliberations.
Dziękuję, Mr. Daniel Wasik, and apologies from the organization, because we didn't advise that you needed translation. So I guess that now all of you have phones and device if you need it. So now it's my pleasure to call to the stage Mr. Esteban Leon, head of the UN Habitat City Resilience Global Program. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, welcome. It's always a bit difficult to talk when we organize a WOOF, because first I have to welcome, but at the same time thank the host country, because we are also here hosted by them. So thanks to Poland for this opportunity, and welcome to the World Urban Forum of UN Habitat. Why urban resilience? The important part to recognize is that, yes, the world is urbanizing. It's more urban than rural at the moment, and this trend is not going to change. So from one side, we have people coming to urban areas growing, and on the other side, we have climate change effects, and we have other challenges like COVID, as we saw. So in order to, let's say, respond better and recover better from all these challenges, we must build resilience. I mean, it is logic, right? UN Habitat started all this process many years ago with a very much risk reduction approach. Very, very quickly we switched into an humanitarian response mood, because at the end of the day, disasters were coming more and more, and we tried to support humanitarian community into building back better, but especially creating the foundation for sustainable development. But then we realized that we cannot run after disasters all the time. I mean, we have to prevent, we have to advance our agenda, we have to build our resilience. Because, if you have a large number of cities that are growing, we have to start thinking in how do we make sure that these cities grow in a sustainable manner, in a planned manner. So that's how the program, the City Resilience Global Program of UN Habitat, was born, by making sure that we implement the large agreements, the SDGs, the new urban agenda, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Paris Agreement for Climate Change, but we approach those agreements in a practical manner. So luckily, and when I say luckily because this was very new few years ago when we started discussing about the concepts of resilience, we have some partners and donors that supported us. Among them is the city of Barcelona who bet on us and said, let's try to put this together. We have the European Commission who put some funds into developing this methodology and this way of working. We have the Generalitat, the regional government of Catalonia, who's supporting us in a territorial approach. So we started advancing that agenda. And I think that's the beauty of this dialogue that we are organizing, that we all are like-minded. We all believe that resilience building is important, and we all want to switch into a sustainable world, a sustainable urbanization, an urban world. So thank you for this, and I hope that you enjoy this dialogue. And thanks on behalf of UN Habitat, and many thanks on behalf of my program, the City Resilience Global Program. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Now it's a pleasure to welcome online, so we will actually see a video by Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of UNDRR, Mrs. Mami Mitsutori.
Fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to UN Habitat and the city of Katowice for the opportunity to deliver today's opening remarks. The World Urban Forum comes only a month after the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction was held in Bali, Indonesia. Indeed, the two global events share an intersecting agenda. The theme of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction 2022 was From Risk to Resilience towards Sustainable Development for All in a COVID-19 Transformed World. Breaking this down, it speaks to three concepts related to our shared ambitions. First, leveraging our post-pandemic investments for sustainable, risk-informed development. Second, an all-of-society approach to development that leaves no one behind. And third, managing the interconnected challenges that confront us. The theme specifically refers to the COVID-19 pandemic, but we gather against a backdrop of multiple challenges, namely the first major war to break out in Europe in many decades, which is causing great tragedy less than 1,000 kilometers from Katowice, and of course the intensifying risks posed by climate change year after year. These challenges speak to the fragility of our world order and the dire need for urgent action. Many of the losses and impacts from climate change are increasingly concentrated in urban areas. Therefore, many of the opportunities for action also lie within local governments. Evidence shows that ultimately investing in resilience pays for itself. In April this year, my organization, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, launched the Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction, otherwise known as GAR 2022. The title is Our World at Risk, Transforming Governance for a Resilient Future. The report shows that when local and national governments make a decisive shift towards disaster prevention, they receive a significant resilience dividend. This dividend can be realized through incorporating projected climate risk into critical infrastructure planning. It can be accrued by revising budget planning to consider risk and uncertainty, and it can be gained by reconfiguring legal and financial systems to incentivize risk reduction. Optimally, these measures should be combined to prevent significant future losses associated with escalating climate and disaster risk. UNDRR is committed to helping local governments realize the resilience dividend. That is why, along with partners, including UN Habitat, we launched the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative an initiative which aims to leave no municipality behind in strengthening climate and disaster resilience. Now in its second year, MCR 2030 has over 1,100 active municipalities as members, as well as more than 200 service providers for these municipalities. Several leaders of these member cities were present at last month's global platform. I was impressed by local officials sharing their frontline experiences and wisdom and positively influencing the final outcome of the conference. The outcome document, the Bali Agenda for Resilience, calls for transformative change to build resilience before the window of opportunity from COVID-19 closes. One entry point is the ongoing midterm review of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which will culminate in May next year with a political declaration to accelerate the implementation of the Sendai Framework. This process is crucially important for the achievement of the new urban agenda. I call on member states, local governments, and all development partners to take the time to assess what has and has not been working and adjust accordingly. In conclusion, I would like to invoke the theme of this conference, the World Urban Forum. Your theme, transforming our cities for a better urban future. This is a rallying call to improve the lives of billions of people, because a better urban future is a safer, sustainable, and more resilient future for everyone. I wish you a very productive and meaningful discussion. Thank you very much.
Now, we've been listening and hearing that the role of cities and regions, so local governments, is extremely important, and it's a pleasure to announce the first panel on localizing resilience strategies, and UN Habitat invited specifically representatives of local governments, cities and regions to discuss how to develop building resilience strategies. So it's my pleasure to call to the podium Ms. Major Noraini Roslan, Klang Municipal Council President, Malaysia. Yes, please. Mr. Sergio Lopez, Director of Urban Planning of Medellin, Colombia. And Ms. Maria Galindo, Director of Urban Agenda and Digital Nation, Regional Government of Catalonia. We will also have the intervention of Mr. Mohamed Iqbal Khaled, Major of SUS, Tunis, but it will be online, and we will have another intervention also online from Ms. Vera Ravina Sadi, Deputy Governor of Jakarta for Environment and Spatial Planning from Indonesia. Hola. All right, so we will start the panel with a short presentation of the participants. So it's my pleasure to give the word to Ms. Maya Noraini Roslan, from the Klang Municipal Council President, Malaysia. The floor is yours. You can speak from here or from there. I think you have a presentation. Yes. This one? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished guests, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, and wishing you a happy, productive morning here at the 11th World Urban Forum and beautiful Katowice. In between the 10th World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi and January 2022, the city of Subang Jaya has been tried with two major tribulations. First, the COVID-19 pandemic, and secondly, a major flood that we have not seen in 50 years. Pandemic affected not only the whole 900,000 population of the city, but also the whole of Malaysia and the rest of the world. The flood inundated our low-lying areas next to the Klang River and hit more than 7,000 homes. Were we prepared for both calamities? Sadly, the answer is no. But how did we handle the situation? Alhamdulillah, I would say quite well. But then there are plenty of noises, especially from the other side of the political divide, as well as the citizens. Some voices criticism, as well as responses for help and constructive suggestions. Allow me to share with you my experience as the mayor of Subang Jaya City, Malaysia, during these two trying periods. Both during COVID-19 pandemics and during the big flood in December 2021, I have been appointed as the mayor of Subang Jaya City, where in Malaysia we are an appointed officials heading the city, not elected. The coronavirus hit Malaysia through tourists from China as early as January 2020, and the country declared a movement control order in March of that year. National Security Council dictated what we can or cannot do, which activities can remain open, and how far from home you can travel. The city come in to help to enforce safe distancing of people during essential services such as food purchases and enforcing closure of non-essential services. The list of essential services and non-essential services were decided at the federal level. Health and security are solely federal jurisdiction. These are the national recovery plan that has been designed to help Malaysia went through the trying period of COVID. From the phase 1 of total movement control order, and then we move to phase 2, 3, and 4, where more activities can be opened, and at the same time coping with the medical facilities that the country has. So we have to get help from other countries as far as vaccination supply is concerned. And at the state and at the local level, we do try to help out the city's mechanism, even though both health and security are under federal jurisdiction. Yesterday at the Assembly of Local Governments, we talked about multilateral and multi-level governance. So these two areas are very important in cases where we need to work together from the local, the state, and the federal government. At the same time, the state government cannot just sit and watch. So the Selangor state, where my city is situated, have designed a care package trying to help the people from giving stipends or living allowance to small traders, to the poorest, and as well as providing the healthcare facilities, the vaccination, the places where the vaccination and the screening of people with the pandemic, as well as helping out with the logistics for the recovery center to take place. So all of this requires budgetary and governance and collaboration. The local level comes into play during the pandemic. At the city level, we have done quite a number of initiatives namely the one that is empowered to us by the federal government, because the whole country are under movement control order. Even the armies are posted in many major roads to limit the travel of people, and we have to provide the logistics for this blockade or checkpoints, and also to help the local clinics cope with the screening of people who have been infected. Namely, the other role of the city during the pandemic in Malaysia was to enforce the movement control order together with the National Security Council officers, which are not many because the whole country is experiencing the same problem, as well as with the local police force. Secondly, to ensure the safe distancing during activities for essential services like food purchases and health services. Thirdly, to provide for shelter to the army officers manning the blockade points at major routes that connects between the cities and the rest of the metropolitan area. Number 4, issuing permits for movement of essential services such as food provisions. We face challenges explaining to the owners of factories, owners of shops, as to why their activities cannot be open during this time. But since everything comes as a decree from the National Security Council, we are there to enforce it. And by hook or by crook, the choice of activities that can continue during that time is not our choosing. One thing that became the major activity of the local authority at that time is to hand out food baskets to the poorest of the society. And we received plenty of help from companies, from NGOs, from communities willing to provide food for the poor. But the coordination among these donors and the distribution needs to be systematized so that the delivery can be done more effectively. So the job of registering all these organizations and providing information as to where the help are needed most becomes the city's job. Lastly, it's also to regulate online business and home-based business, which becomes very popular during the pandemic. Small businesses started their business at home and they do the delivery, but these businesses are not registered with us before. As far as safety and prevention from nuisance, from being complained by the neighbors because the business start to operate from home, we registered all this business and provide with them guidelines and very minimal regulation. So these are among the things that the city did during that time. We are not truly alone during this pandemic. I would like to thank Economic and Social Commission of the Asia Pacific, which is under the UN, that helped us design this study and prepare us for future disasters. The project is called Building Urban Economic Resilience During and After COVID-19, which is a pilot by the 5 UN Regional Economic Commission, UN Habitat and UN Capital Development Fund to support local authorities to build better in response of the COVID-19. The objectives of the study are to examine and the existing resilience and sustainable development challenges in our city, Subang Jaya, to assess the impact of COVID-19, to identify and prioritize strategies and action for economic reactivation and recovery, and lastly, to align recovery strategies with the city, Subang Jaya, existing plans and strategies. These are the diagnostic that was used by the study, which are business environment, economic governance, basic infrastructure and connectivity, labor market and financial system. And the key findings, we do better in some and we did not do as well in certain aspects. So through these findings, we found out that the unemployment is not affected that much. It stays at around 4.3%, even though it seems like some people lose their job and temporary employment cannot be secured, and small businesses started to bloom because of the unemployment, the temporary employment. But when it was measured, the unemployment rate increases only by a bit at 4.3%. And the number of businesses that deregistered, that has to really close, comes to about 3,074 units, as compared to about 20,000 businesses that was registered with us. We identified the inadequate accessibility and awareness of social and financial support among the vulnerables. At this time, we wish there is a portal, an information one-stop center that the people who need help can come to at that one point and be directed to where the kind of help that they need can come from. Help is everywhere, but it's not concentrated, or it's not aligned in one site. From the diagnostic that we have done, we identified our vulnerabilities pre-COVID, during COVID, and what can be done in the future. So after that, we did our recovery strategy, which focuses on business and job opportunities, mobility, resilience and climate change, and governance. We segmented into short-term, medium, and long-term plans that needs to be implemented. These are among the immediate things that we did at that time. We call Subang Jaya Command Center, Entrepreneurs and Skill Integrated Platforms. These are to help the small businesses set up their business and get connected to their clients through our Command Center, and to direct them as to where financial and grants can be obtained. Secondly, we have to look into other activities. Even though at that time it was affected by the COVID, but a new kind of activities need to be encouraged and developed in order to help diversify the economy and the non-dependence on land-based or manufacturing-based economies. So we thought of food tourism, ecotourism, and medical tourism, which already have certain advantage in our city. And the diversification of local economy through empowering small and medium enterprises becomes a very pertinent action that we have taken, because these people are the group that were most affected by the COVID-19. This is another place that we looked into, which is to transform underutilized spaces and buildings for community and commercial users. During COVID, when movement control orders are in place, we found out that people living in crowded flats, especially the bottom 10% of our population, do not have a place to release the attention, to play, to even exercise, to get together, especially among children and women who are cooped up in the house and cannot go anywhere else. So places like along the staircase, pocket areas, within that small compound within their flats becomes an important place for them to interact and get some fresh air and get some exercise. So after the COVID has abated a little bit, we go into those places that we can enhance them by placemaking activities, by placemaking initiatives, so that to provide this a group of people a better space for their interaction, for their activities, especially for the children that cannot attend school. We have to have an online learnings. And those who are among the poor suffers from digital gap, because they can't get the Wi-Fi, they don't have enough internet data plan, but they do need to log on in order to learn. So at this time, providing them with any devices that we can buy secondhand, provide them with the data plan, and creating a place for them so that they can get together and get a good Wi-Fi and internet connection is very, very important. We embark on greenhouse gas inventory after this so that it prepares us to become a better community at low carbon, to become a low carbon cities. I'm afraid I don't have much time to share with you the experience that I have for the flood mitigation, but the flood that happened affected the whole state of Selangor, and I moved from Subang Jaya to another city which is called Klang, which is situated by the coastal area and next to the mouth of the river. So the impact is very huge, and the cleanup that we had to do take us many millions of ringgit and many weeks to do it. And then after that, we had to come up with a plan in order to prepare us better for the future and to invest in the infrastructure that will prevent the flooding from happening again. Sorry that my time is up, but I'm glad to have been able to have the opportunity to share my experience with you. And I hope some of this, especially the study done by UNESCO, will show you the way of evaluating the situation and preparing the plan for preventing or coping with the next disaster. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major Nolaini Roslan. It was a pleasure. Please, Sergio Lopez, Director of Urban Planning of Medellin, Colombia. The floor is yours. Just a short comment. You will be able to provide the organization with the PowerPoints, and it will be available on the website. So if you cannot finish your presentations, later the audience can access. So please, Mr. Lopez, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Sergio Lopez. I'm the Director of Planning of Department of Medellin, Colombia. It's a pleasure to be here in this important event. I am doing my presentation in Spanish. Please put your translator. And then the idea is talk 5 minutes about Medellin and resilience. Okay.
Yes. See, that's right there. Aquí está. Sí.
Muchas gracias. Muy bien.
I will be talking about a slightly different perspective in terms of resilience. At present, urban resilience is a topic very often discussed in terms of COVID, but resilience is the possibility that cities have to simply take a step forward and come out of any crisis, stress, difficult situation. And Medellin was able to do this in a great way in recent times. First, a few words about methodology on how Medellin today expresses its resilience. Briefly, this is Medellin, located in the mountains in South America, in Colombia. And we're in a very narrow valley. We have 2.5 million residents. 100 square kilometers of urban areas, and Medellin is a city that had a series of crises, stresses, very, very difficult times that have left a mark. Between 1970 and 1990, a huge crisis with local crime. This was very well known on a world scale, and we also went through a huge transformation, and this transformation allows us to be deemed as a resilient city. It's very important to talk about this. We're in a very narrow valley. As I mentioned, 2.5 million residents, and what you can see here on the slide, we really don't have anywhere else to go to expand. So the poorest people live in the highest part of the mountains, and these are places that it's very difficult to reach. And the costs of living are going up due to the fact of the place they're living. 1999 was a very important year. We had a very large number of crime. No other city on a world scale did not have such results. Then we underwent a transformation, and now we are a city where there is order, where there is a rule of law, and this shows us that we are resilient and that we came out of a huge crisis. We were in the headlines in newspapers all over the world due to drug trafficking, violence. We're talking about 1980, 1990, but this is behind us. What did we do? And this is what I want to talk about. Our infrastructure, public infrastructure, was where it never were before. We have electric stairs, public stairs, to get to these high areas high up where it's difficult to go due to the mountain slopes. We have made pedestrian paths in informal areas, these poorer areas, possibilities to move around. If we had these retention containers for water, we created parks, and this was in areas where there were no green areas in the past. We also created a possibility to throw out waste, garbage, where in proper areas. Previously, garbage was put anywhere. We are gaining back the river Medellin. This is the main river going through the city center. Previously, there was a huge highway, lots of cars, and now we're transforming this into a public park so that people could have their area around the river. What else? We have created green corridors to handle climate change, because climate change and the temperature, as well as other aspects, touch us more and more. We also analyzed data, and we have created Medellin Me Cuida. Medellin is looking after me, and in this program, people were sharing information about themselves, sharing information about their needs. And our transport system is something that brings together parts of the city. Now we have 7 of these cable cars that were used for tourist purposes, for skiing, and we adjusted this technology that allows for mass transport for the 400,000 people that live on the outskirts. In the poorer areas, we have a metro cable car that reach these districts to which it would be very difficult to get to by car, simply because there's no roads. We have a very well-developed electric mobility system, and I'm telling you this from a very simple reason. Because we have done things that were not around before. The best schools, the best availability of the best schools and other places is usually those available to those who could pay. But we created these spaces for people who don't have those kinds of funds. We have won international architectural competitions, and this was not just for schools. There's also a beautiful program, Buen Comienzo, a good start, for children, infants to 5 years old, that makes the availability of public spaces. This year we're inaugurating the first university campus from the 4th Industrial Revolution, and we want Medellin to become a city that creates know-how, and for this to happen, we need to create infrastructure. One more thing, we have given each child a computer. Each child that lives in Medellin that goes to school for a very simple reason, because the pandemic has shown that we can be locked down, we cannot go out, but there will be people who don't have a computer to be able to make contact with the world. And thanks to the pandemic, we have done and taken a step forward. We have given a computer to every child, and we have brought about better accessibility to infrastructure. We have given away about 50,000 computers, and we still have 350,000 more to give away to students in the city, and we hope that this is a problem that will be able to be replicated in other parts of Medellin. The library, public spaces, various topics in terms of resilience. We believe in the fact that this crisis that we experienced has contributed to developing our resilience. We have said never again. We have said no to violence. Here is the Monaco building where Pablo Escobar once lived. It has blown up many times. We have decided to make a public park there. No más, no more, never, never again, no more violence. Más in Spanish is the plus that we see on the man's hand. This is a very important part of resilience. Various places where you can do sports, public spaces. This is very important. I have to conclude my presentation, but one more thing about what we are doing now. Several awards or recognitions that Medellin has received. The Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize, the creation of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 in the public space, a public park and a library, and again, we're in the headlines of the world newspapers, but for different reasons. Now there are new challenges, new stresses, and in our case, we have shown something that has taken place for over 50 years, but it doesn't mean that we're not feeling stress. It simply means that we're feeling a transformation and we have new solutions. We cooperate with the city of Barcelona. I would like to thank for this cooperation and partnership. So we're looking at these shocks, these stresses. The pandemic was a shock. We didn't know what we're going to do, how we're going to behave. It was a huge stress for us, the climate change. And we're still looking at how we can push this forward. Climate changes in Medellin, connected with air, how to deal with this air pollution question in many cities. We're looking at how we can handle this pandemic, and perhaps there's more in front of us, and we need to be prepared in terms of protests that in Latin America continue to take place due to social inequality. We need to see how we can face this. Medellin has over 100 quebradas, these small streams that go through the city. There's a lot of rain in Medellin, and this rain makes these streams rise, and they flood these areas. Migration. We're next to Venezuela, and Venezuela in recent time has caused 1 million migrants to come into our country due to political unrest. We're in Poland right now, that is bordering on Ukraine. We can see how this urban resilience takes place in a situation where we didn't know what was going to happen. We're now in the course of preparing recommendations on how to plan public strategy that will last so that we can face and manage these shocks and crises. If we will not continue solutions after identification, then it's pointless. And together with the city of Barcelona, we are creating a path of development that allows us to continue these urban policies. And this is all this good, all these positive things that the city is creating a new agenda. And as a result, we can have new possibilities. Thank you very much.
Maria Galindo, Director of Urban Agenda and Digitization of the Regional Government of Catalonia, Spain, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm Maria Galindo. I'm here from the regional government of Catalonia. I am Director General for Digital Nation and Urban Agenda. So that's pretty much a declaration of intention. So bringing in digital to urban development and to the whole development. To start with, I think we have a video prepared. So. Or we don't. We do? Okay, okay. Oh.
Aquesta agenda dels pobles i ciutats 2050 persegueix un gran objectiu, el d'una Catalunya digital, climàticament neutra, amb un territori equilibrat de pobles i ciutats més verdes, més pròsperes i més democràtiques.
I que posi tot el potencial de la tecnologia al servei de les persones i la gestió pública.
The point is, at the services of people, our cities and little towns must have sustainable future. And this transition into a new urban model, green, just and democratic. And this is a wonderful future for us. And we hope more equality.
Tal i com surti d'aquesta assemblea, l'aprovi el govern de Catalunya.
Aquesta agenda no només l'hem fet pel compromís que tenim com a país amb les agendes globals, amb Nacions Unides, amb la Comissió Europea, sinó també per la responsabilitat que tenim davant dels nostres fills i filles per aquest futur i per aquesta Catalunya 2050.
Confiem en vosaltres. Tenim ganes d'un món millor. Moltes gràcies.
Thank you. So that happened only last Wednesday. We launched our new urban agenda for Catalonia. In this localization, we've called it the agenda of our villages and cities, because we're actually applying this territorial perspective into urban planning. So we are committed to climate neutrality, to sustainable, just, equitable, and inclusive cities that leave no one behind. So basically what we've seen and what I want to bring into the table is this territorial perspective. We are facing territorial imbalances in Catalonia. So Barcelona is the capital city of Catalonia. We are located in the Mediterranean, down the Pyrenees. And so we've seen that the city of Barcelona and its metropolitan area is growing very fast, although it has limits. And so this growth is also bringing on pressures to how you plan urbanistically, but how you plan also urban infrastructure, how you plan the cities, how you also plan mobility, all the stresses into the city. But we've also seen that the rest of Catalonia, the remoter areas, and apart from Barcelona, are seeing different stresses. These cities are depopulating. They are losing activity. They are losing jobs, and so they are losing population children and adolescents are leaving the cities to go to Barcelona to study to university for not returning back. And so these cities are also facing the elderly population process. So this territorial approach, what we're using in our implementation of the new urban agenda, is to rebalance our territory, to stress out Barcelona and its metropolitan area, and to bring opportunities also to the other rural and less urbanized areas in Catalonia. So we're doing this through three main priorities, three challenges that we've been working on with our urban agenda, with the agenda of the villages and cities of Catalonia. We've undergone, this agenda has been going on for 4 years now. We've undergone different working groups with more than 300 experts and different constituencies from the government, from the regional government, from the local governments, but also from the civil society, from the economic sector. And we've been building on three main priorities. The first one is building territorial balance. So how do we generate opportunities in areas apart from Barcelona? And this we're working on by developing and planning further infrastructure, not just physical infrastructure, where of course mobility and connectivity is very important. And for this, we're working on mobility as a service, different kinds of approach through technology, but also using digital tools for urban planning and for infrastructure planning. And here, through our Agency for Land Development in Casol, we're also present here at WUF, we are working on developing further tools to increase our efficiency in urban planning. And also through a very specific project to bring on connectivity to all the municipalities in Catalonia and to all the people in Catalonia. So far, 98% of municipalities are connected with fiber optic connectivity, as to bring on the opportunities of digitalization to these territories and to these towns and villages. Secondly, economic prosperity. So our second priority is to regain economic prosperity. We're doing this also because we firmly believe that digitalization is bringing on new opportunities, not just for traditional sectors, but also to prepare us for the future. You know the numbers, 2050, around 70% of the jobs that will be in place do not exist right now. So how do we prepare our society, our economy for this? We need digital skills, so we are very much working on how the new technologies can be implemented and can be deployed to gain competitiveness in different sectors. We're developing the 5G areas in different locations in Catalonia, one dedicated for healthcare, one dedicated for mobility services, one dedicated for education. And these are areas that bring together the capacities of digital technologies along the private sector and research sectors to develop use cases and pilot projects on these specific areas. And we're also working on 3D printing labs as to promote also complementarity of traditional industries, and of course working very much on the circularity of our economy. Thirdly, our third big challenge and priority is social equity, social welfare. And these we're also very much, we are pushing towards a digital society. So developing and promoting a government, digital services in the government that everyone, any citizen, come from where they come, can access. And so we're working on the digital divide and digital skills to promote, okay, I'm running out of time, to promote, quickly, to promote that the talent, that we bring on the talent that we need for this future. And of course, digital democracy and digital rights and responsibilities. We're also advocating for gender-based, infant-based, and the feminine vision in our cities and our planning in general. And lastly, I want to say that we're also working, and Medellin is always an inspiration. So we're also working with UN Habitat's City Resilience Profiling Tool and the City Resilience Global Program in bringing this methodology for the City Resilience Profiling Tool that my fellow from Medellin was explaining into the territorial approach and to bring this. And we're facing many challenges like the energy transition, the energy model, how do we move from one carbon model to a climate neutrality, which is our goal for 2050, but also how do we cope with seaside recession, droughts, the new economic challenges that digitalization is posing us, climate change, disaster reduction, and also the interconnectivity of cities and the territory, and how do we connect opportunities across the territory. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Galindo. Now we have the pleasure to see online, connected, Mr. Mohamed Ibrahim Khaled, Mayor of Sousse, Tunisia. Welcome, Mr. Khaled. Can you hear us?
Je vous entends, mais je...
I'm sorry, my microphone was on mute.
Je vais essayer d'être...
I will try. I would have loved to be with you in Katowice today. Unfortunately, for family private reasons, I am not able to join you. My father has just passed away. This is a very emotional and difficult time for me right now, but such is life, unfortunately. That death is a part of it. And this is something that you simply need to cope with and go forward. Once a mayor of the city of Sousse, my father was the mayor of Sousse, hence this was his office in which he worked for several years. So it's a very, very emotional time for me. Sousse is a rich city due to its history, its heritage. It's a city that is several thousand years old. One of the oldest cities in Tunisia, thanks to its archaeological legacy and heritage. We have a museum, a collection of mosaics, one of the largest in the world. The city of Sousse is called Sukta in Polish, has developed thanks to tourism, and this development has resulted in a lack of balance or equality. Before the revolution, Sousse was a city with a positive birth rate. People came to us. It was easy to find a job. Everyone had access to employment. No one was left alone or left behind. With the onset of the revolution and the laws that were implemented, the law against the law of positive discrimination has left a mark on the economic development of our region. This law was not a positive thing. COVID-19 is one thing, but the economic crisis that Sahad has been dealing with started long before COVID. Unfortunately, we were not able to understand at the time how much the world is changing, not just from a climate change point of view, but also lifestyle. We have based our economies on mass tourism, and mass tourism right now is kind of coming to an end. This is just like the last dance of the swan. We need to change the model of tourism to emphasize quality, the quality of our cities, the benefits in terms of architecture. Susa is a beautiful city, an abundant city that has been recently dealing with difficulties, but we do hope that the program that we have started will meet the expectations of our citizens, of our residents, and our friends from abroad, meaning tourists. Susa is experiencing a crisis for the past 10 years. The crisis was deepened due to COVID, but it existed long before COVID. This has all shown how important it is for us to think about spatial management, so that people could have space to develop, to grow, to live, to be able to be happy. So we need green spaces, parks. I hope that we will have greater opportunities in this scope. Unfortunately, in tourism, in Tunisia, the cities are not responsible for education, mass transport, and health. This is all in the competence of the central government, directly, the central government. Sus, as you know, has a beautiful, beautiful beach, sandy beach, wonderful beaches. Unfortunately, these beaches have suffered. Due to erosion, and for the past 2 years we have been trying to combat erosion. And thanks to difficult decisions that we have taken, we have decided to strengthen the coast, sometimes with concrete, and not everyone likes this idea, but this is necessary so that our beaches can survive. And this is to the joy of the citizens and the foreign tourists. For the first time this year, I'm proud, as a resident of the city, that all of the beaches in Sus are deemed as not polluted. Those both that are for tourists and those that are further out. So we have come to the conclusion that our beaches are not polluted. These are beaches where you can bathe. People are even encouraged to do so, both tourists from Tunisia and from abroad. Political development and economic development have brought about migration. Migration from rural areas to cities. That's why certain districts of poor people have been created in a more chaotic manner, and sometimes they're lacking green areas, proper infrastructure. We're trying to fix this problem. These districts, these poor districts, mean problems. Poverty means problems with safety. Sometimes there is, it's not safe to be there. So we need a program to be able to plan the space well. We had such a program in the past, but unfortunately it did not take all of the needs of the city into account. It's not a very good thing to say here, But unfortunately, it was the interests of certain people, a group of people, that were being taken into consideration. Most of our residents suffered as a result. We're trying to fix this. We're trying to fix these mistakes. The new plan needs to take into account the reality that surrounds us with energy development, infrastructure development. We want to integrate and bring in all of the analyses that have been made at the request of the city. These are studies on the environment, on transport, on green space, on parks. And this is going to be an ambitious plan to be able to manage the space adequately. The city is not the only stakeholder here. Various structures work here. We have the port that is an entity in itself that is dealing with problems, and the city of Sousse cannot live without international commerce, international trade. By a sea route, the city of Sousse cannot live without Sousse, but the port needs to cooperate with us and look after the quality of the air. And here we need to cooperate on a standing basis. The port is not just a commercial partner, there's also chores, and unfortunately we need to come to a close. This integrated plan will help us create a happy future for Sousse, so that the city of Sousse can become an integrated city and can fight combat change. Thank you.
We are going to listen. Yes. Over. Yes, now we're going to see and listen online Ms. Vera Revinasari, Deputy Governor of Jakarta for Environment and Spatial Planning.
And gentlemen, honorable panelists and participants, I am Vera Revinasari, the Acting Deputy Governor of Jakarta for Spatial Planning and Environment. It is an honor to be here today in the dialogue session of World Urban Forum 2022. I thank you for providing me with this opportunity to share Jakarta's vision in building resilience for a sustainable urban future. As with many other cities around the world, Jakarta's new urban vision results from a response to the COVID-19. The pandemic was an eye-opener, and from problems, opportunities arise. In our effort to solve the health and economic crisis, we made digital life breakthrough. Furthermore, by changing our ways of life, we have also discovered new means to reduce our negative impact towards the environment. Guided by two basic principles, which is valuing every life and ensuring a decent livelihood for everyone, we look into both problems and opportunities to distillate four principles of Jakarta's new urban vision. These are pandemic-proof city, resilience to crisis city, digitally advanced city, and sustainable and livable city. These four visions can be further translated into transformation for key sectors in urban development. These are spaces where the goal is to realize a digital and community-oriented development. Business by building adaptive economy and experiential industries. Welfare by creating inclusive and personalized welfare services. And government through enacting an agile and data-driven government. In the first key sector, which is space, we have 3 points of intervention. These are digital-oriented development with the principle of minimizing physical mobility to investing in digital infrastructures. neighborhood-centric planning, which established self-sustaining neighborhood with the means to distribute services and amenities effectively, and resilience urban services, which provide facilities required to sustain resilient urban areas. In the government sector, changes are made by creating a new dynamic organization model which simplifies hierarchy to increase effectiveness, creating end-to-end digital government with emphasis on data transparency, and maintaining an agile performance management system which manage performance based on adaptive goals, clear priorities, and developing human resources. With welfare, we aim to provide dynamic and personal data management by enabling citizens to access government services through a single ID. We also ensure a personalized intervention with measurable impact through data management and analysis to personalize support in ensuring that no citizens are left behind. Furthermore, we aim to build a universal access of welfare services through digital support. This ensures that every citizen, no matter their level of digital literacy, welfare status, age, or education level, have access to government welfare services. For business reforms, we aim to create a digitally adaptable workforce, which can adapt to rapid changes and respond to potential crises. We also aim to automate permit systems while maintaining transparency and fairness. Most importantly, we encourage the industries and enterprises to focus on diverse, novel, and authentic values. To this end, we support the creative industry, nurture digital economy, implement alternative value tourism, and create unique export commodities. In implementing our vision for a new Jakarta, we put collaboration as our main development approach. The main idea is to actively involve urban stakeholders in all aspects of city development. The local government acts as a collaborator which coordinates urban stakeholders to ensure that collaboration projects are implemented smoothly and effectively. The collaboration itself can take on many possibilities. It can be done with the central government to support strategic national projects located in the city. Or it can happen between the government and citizen, or it can even happen between citizens in which the local government acts as regulators. In these last two schemes, citizens play the role of co-creators. By having a direct stake in developing their city, the citizens will develop a sense of belonging for their city, which in turn fosters openness. This will help the government in gathering the required resources for projects, creating an effective link and match mechanism with available resources from all stakeholders, as well as giving incentives to maintain transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow panelists and moderator, with this, I conclude the brief overview of Jakarta's post-pandemic vision for the city. I thank you once again for this opportunity. I look forward to the day that you visit Jakarta and experience the spirit of collaboration which makes our vision a reality.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sari, for this wonderful closing words and your presentation. And thank you all participants of the panel. So thank you very much for participating, and we will have a brief discussion after the second panel. Thank you very much. Now we come to the second panel on policy directions for innovative urban resilient solutions. And it is my pleasure to call to the stage Mr. Stefano Palmieri, President of the Economic Section in the European Economic and Social Committee. Ms. Anita Areli Cetina, Secretariat of Central American Social Integration. Mr. Ronald Jackson, Head of the Disaster Risk Reduction, Recovery for Building Resilience, UNDP. And Mr. Walter Kotte, Special Representative of IFRC, Secretary General, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. And Mr. Ian Mckinnon, Director, Inclusive Design. This maybe here. No, I'm gonna stand up because I see that. It's fine. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's fine. We will have a short presentation. We're running a bit over time, as you probably have noticed. So please, if we can stick to 4, maximum 5 minutes, would be wonderful. So I ask Mr. Stefano Palmieri. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. I would like, first of all, to thank you for inviting me to this high-level conference to present the view of the European Economic and Social Committee, which is the European house of the civil society organization, social partner, and economic partner. It's a real pleasure to stay here. And today confirmed me that this forum is a source of inspiration, as was in Quito in 2016, now in Katowice. Let me explain in a few words what the committee is doing. As an institutional consultative body for the Commission, the European Parliament and the Council, we are consulted on a whole range of the legislative proposal and non-legislative text in many policy areas, included the urban matters and the cohesion policy. This provides a unique opportunity for our committee, for the civil society organization, to contribute in shaping the European policy making at a very early stage, well before that the Parliament and the Council start their discussion. For example, already from the beginning of the pandemic, in March 2020, our committee has drawn the attention to some critical issues in distortion and risk, like economic problem, health problem, environmental and cyber. And we proposed some point to systematically consider the resilience in the new Leipzig Charter on Sustainable European Cities. Well, to build resilience, we think that we need an important monitoring system that integrates all key stakeholders and in which they play an important role in decision-making, the right environmental framework and the governance. It is crucial need for indicator in the future urban development, and for this reason, United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Indicator are an important base for the future discussion concerning comparability, traceability, transparency, and also dynamic and progress for the urban development. Another key factor are the specialized international network that provide horizontal collaboration among cities. You know that a large number of the European cities, not all, but many, are embarked on a strategy toward internationalization, including joining networks specialized in addressing climate change, sustainability issues, exploring partnership and export market for local business, joining strategic network and formal organization to lobby the EU and other transnational institutions. I think that this forum is an important opportunity to strengthen this linkage. But the governance is remaining a challenge, but allocating the investment based on local and regional needs is rather more appropriate than based on the market needs. This is why we are in favor of the multi-level governance. A new approach is needed to cover non-economic value, to answer the long-term sustainability decision, and to integrate sustainable and innovation criteria into public procurement tendering procedure. Synergy and complementarity between region and institution are two ingredients which should be included in the role of the relevant stakeholder and their interaction with the government. More coherence and coordination are required, at least at the EU level, concerning the implementation of transformative resilience procedures. Credibility and legitimacy are crucial for building transformative resilience and for policymaking growth and community development. I try to reduce my intervention to give also the other speaker the opportunity to say something, because there is the stress of the time. Two last points. For the resilience of the people that live and work in a city, we need education, reskilling and training to support the digital and climate transition to a new low-carbon economy, and smart cities are requiring further efforts. Equity and social justice are often missing at all levels, and just transition is not a form of compensation, but a solution for an unbalanced development process. Balance is another important ingredient for the structural transformation of our city. Sustainable development is about equilibrium and balance in a context in which competition principle is transversally integrated with urban development strategies. The transformation of our cities should take into account that all variables of sustainable development that are equally approached and have the same level of importance. The perception of the resilience need is rather positive among different cities and regions, as many already see the growing impact of climate change in their urban domain, but the willingness to facilitate resilience transformative measure is rather fragmented, looking at the various governance levels. The willingness to proceed in this direction is influenced also by poverty and the incapacity to fulfill the basic urban needs in some cases. Above this, mental resistance to change is still a problem in the poorest regions, along with the lack of regulation and standards or inadequate financial support. Standards can be delivered and monitored by the central government, but the city should have enough flexibility to create their tailored approach. So, in our works, we say that the involvement of the civil society organization is important if you want a city in an efficient and sustainable way where live your citizens. And you have to see and hear your citizens. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Palmieri. Please, Ms. Anita Arelis-Cedina, Secretariat of Central American Social Integration.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I am Anita Zetina, and I'm representing I am the Secretary General of the Secretariat of the Central American Social Integration System, SICA, which is the technical body that promotes the coordination of intersectoral social policies among the member states of the Central American Integration System, CICA, and through which we contribute to the establishing of regional agendas for addressing common challenges of sustainable development. As the regional body that provides support to the Central American Council for Housing and Human Settlements, we are part of the regional mechanism that contributes to enhancing urban development processes developed or implemented in our countries. We recognize the importance of policy directions to promote resilience in its different dimensions. And so we recognize and acknowledge the importance to generate information that allows us to know the territories in all its dimensions. The gathering and compiling of information on the scope of the territory can allow us to make better decisions, and so therefore it is very important to promote learning and exchange processes in a way that these will serve as an input to improve the design and development planning for urban development. It is also necessary to define guidelines focused on strengthening the capacities of the territorial and land use planning bodies so that they can be better prepared to address the different dynamics of the territories and their inhabitants. It is also indispensable to promote inclusive and representative citizen participation so as to leave no one behind as specified in the 2030 agenda. Another important guideline for us is the development of efforts and interventions articulated under a holistic vision, such as those planned by the 2030 agenda and the new urban agenda. These processes, however, require participation, ownership, communication, and monitoring linked to multi-level governance committed to social cohesion. From the Secretariat of the Central American Social Integration System, as an entity of regional integration along with our Council of Ministers, we see a very important role in supporting the definition of a common vision for our region based on strategic guiding instruments. We are a part of a regional integration mechanism made up of 8 countries: Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Panama, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic. The institution I represent, the Secretariat for the Central American Council on Housing and Human Settlements, is the regional body that takes on the leadership for housing and human settlement sector, and through which the strategic agenda for the sector is defined. We focus on territorial planning and sustainable development. As part of our technical support, we seek to enhance the urban development processes that are undertaken by the countries through promoting processes of knowledge management through the exchange of experiences and systematization of such experiences. We also promote case studies, peer-to-peer learning, as well as helping to align international cooperation and to be the voice of countries in international forum such spaces to project what we as a region are doing, as we're doing in this forum now. It is very important for us as well to promote the coordination of intersectoral social policies among our member states, with the aim of establishing regional agendas for addressing common challenges of sustainable development in Central America and the Dominican Republic in such a way that resilience can be promoted in its different dimensions and that these common challenges can be turned into opportunities for our region. We contribute to strengthening capacities, promote innovation through the exchange of good practices and shared reflection, and we help to improve processes linked to the monitoring and evaluation of policies. We work on urban development from the perspective of integrated work at different levels of government, local, national, and regional. We promote communication and the articulation between central and local governments, facilitating communication spaces and promoting the planning of joint interventions, in addition to the exchange between countries. We saw how the pandemic made us quickly emerge into and react into ways to innovate. And this could only be done with information, transformation, and innovation as key elements to generate effective and efficient responses and solutions. We identified digital gaps as a key challenge for our region because these gaps persist among household workers, companies, and governments at different levels, in the end, leaving the most vulnerable populations behind. We need to address, as I said, a couple examples of what we've done in our region to promote regional agendas for all countries has been the development of the regional plan for the implementation of the new urban agenda for our region, Central America and the Dominican Republic, which looks at risk management as well as a gender perspective. Out of that, we also have our first implementation instrument for recovery, social reconstruction, and resiliency in our region. And the third component of that plan deals with urban development, focusing on slums or informal settlements. I want to end by saying that we adopt a vision of integration that allows progress towards embracing social integration as the articulating pillar for human development, and thus we can serve as a reference worldwide because of the processes that we embark on. We are very grateful for this space, and we reiterate our interest and commitment from the social system of SICA to build more productive, technological, innovative, fair, and inclusive territories. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ronald Jackson, Head of the Disaster Risk Reduction, Recovery with Building Resilience, UNDP, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I also adopt the thanks extended by my colleagues who spoke before me. Colleagues, friends, as we deliberate upon shaping resilient urban futures, we must recall former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's assertion that the battle for sustainable development will be won or lost in the cities. So we recognize that cities are now the theater of action now and will be in the future. We're seeing this in terms of the big events, but also some of the small everyday risk and small scale events which are impacting us on a socioeconomic level. UNDP recently conducted an analytical review of the decade of urban resilience to better understand the existing demands and emerging priorities related to urban resilience. The findings tell us that more of the same is clearly not enough to meet the current challenges or the future challenges. It also told us the need to do things differently is immediate and is pressing. So let me highlight just 5 key points to enliven our discussion and debate today. 1, for resilient and sustainable urban development, we don't need more or newer plans. but rather to be innovative by changing our planning processes. Urban planning currently is overtly driven by political economy, which facilitates urban expansion, far outstripping its capacity to manage same. And it is characterized by a widening national to city planning disconnect. In fact, the prevailing political economy, especially in LICs, this is low-income countries, and LDCs, least development countries, has pushed classic planning instruments into disuse. Better envisioning of urban development futures through the deployment of foresight tools will help to take a decadal and beyond view by connecting the immediate to the medium and long term to overcome the current urban planning challenges. In this context, it will not be out of place for me to suggest a renaissance of the classic urban planning practice as many of us have known and practiced in the past. 2, the need to be more proactive in the engagement of a diverse set of sectors and stakeholders to make it more people-centered and less of an exercise by administrative domains. Urban spaces of tomorrow and their resilience will be contingent upon the ability to respond to the needs and the demands of the people and not the other way around. That is, their ability to meet the health, livelihoods, basic socioeconomic development needs, and especially the needs of those that are traditionally marginalized in the urban development process. Recognizing this imperative, UNDP's Urban Risk Management and Resilience Strategy seeks to enhance engagement of a diverse set of stakeholders and interest groups to share urban development through connected policy and collective action. This includes amplifying the voices of the urban poor and marginalized to help urban planning cater to their specific needs and vulnerabilities. 3, resilient urban future demands addressing all resilience dimensions, that is the physical, environmental, and the social, all in tandem, to be able to foster a comprehensive all-hazard and multi-risk approach and to establish it as a political and administrative investment with the potential to accrue dividends across decadal cycles. Addressing one dimension over the other will only tend to aggravate the unattended ones while diluting the impact of investment across others. 4, envisioning resilient urban futures must inevitably be able to expand innovations and harness the potential offered by digital technology-based development solutions by improving access and adoption to tools such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. This will bring qualitative dimensions to city functioning and resilience through improved modeling and foresight-based planning and risk management scenario planning, while identifying breakpoints in a system through a digital and crowdsourcing approach. UNDP is investing in these tools while brokering relationships with private sector and other tech players through the Accelerator Labs or Sustainable Development Goals Artificial Intelligence Labs and the Smart City Solutions Center. This investment is key to support small cities which otherwise would be left behind in the technological advancement. Lastly, let me reiterate the critical importance of investing in effecting cultural and behavioral shifts across all levels and sectors to ensure a risk and resilience-informed development and livelihood practices. This will require informing and recasting social norms and practices through incentivizing and disincentivizing thinking and behavioral patterns. Over the years, countries and communities have implemented initiatives and financial instruments to effect cultural and behavioral shifts, which can be complemented by requisite advocacy campaigns and information networking. Colleagues, recognizing the imperatives associated with realizing resilient urban futures, UNDP is promoting policy coherence and programmatic portfolios to achieve complementarities and to ensure that our risk reduction and resilience building investments deliver development dividends across sectors while engaging a spectrum of stakeholders. The need to move away from a linear policy instrument to forward coherent and mutually reinforcing ones is a sine qua non for realizing the multiplier co-benefits of resilience and sustainable urban development. Adopting a collaborative approach to secure tangible progress towards our collective aspirations has the potential to deliver innovative urban resilience solutions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. And please, Mr. Walter Kotte, Special Representative of IFRC Secretary General, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Christian Societies. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Salam alaikum. Bonjour. Shen Dobri. And buenos dias. For me, it's a big pleasure to be here on behalf of 192 national societies of the Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, on behalf of 15 million volunteers that we have in our network, on behalf of 150 million of followers, on behalf of 180,000 branches that we have in the world that are part of your partnerships. And very happy to be here in front of you, believers of resilience. For me, the most important matter of today is that you are here. You are very resilient because you are still, after 2 hours, ready to listen. And I want to listen you to. And I think I will invite you to go to our booth that is in the exposition, and we can listen also to your experiences. We need to exchange. This is an opportunity that is beautiful here when we talk about resilience experiences and practices in the corridors, in the different settings that we have. Let's do that. Let's continue doing that. But resilience is happiness. Resilience is a way to create freedom. Resilience is a way to create opportunities for people that is excluded. We are doing that. We are doing so in many countries. We are doing that in Ukraine. We are doing that in Syria. We are doing that in Venezuela. We are doing that in Myanmar. We are doing that in many countries in the world. We are doing that in Colombia. We are doing my homeland, by the way. We are doing that in Yemen. We are doing that in Jakarta, in Tunis, in Medellin, in many countries in the world. In Spain, we are doing that. We are partners for you. And something that I want to say is learning from COVID is giving us the opportunity to see how far we are of the integration. We need to work more closely, we need to work more connected, and we need to understand that resilience is not a belonging of governments. Resilience is an opportunity to put together public sector, private sector, communities, and other sectors in order to create a very clear opportunity to expand the capacities of the communities and of the citizenship. Resilience is also an opportunity to use the knowledge that we have in a very integrated way. Resilience is a way to create trust. On all the examples that you listen today from the mayors of the cities, the representatives, you will see that there is a component of accountability, a component of engagement, a component of trust. We are believers on that in the Federation. For us, the volunteers, the branches, the people in the ground are bridges, are connectors to work with communities in a very neutral way. We are offering to you, as a federation, a neutral convener, a neutral partner. We are. And we are ready to support, to serve as a broker, to be part of a team building new opportunities for communities excluded. More than 2.3 billion people today is living in poverty. That is the real challenge that we have. And the majority of them, more than 50% of them, are living in cities. And we need to pay attention to that. The message that I wanted to give to you today on behalf of my network is we are ready. We build our strategies. We commit in our own plans. We have resolutions in the last General Assembly that happened last week and the Council of Delegates of the movement. We already commit to impulse our resilience agenda together with all the governments, with all the stakeholders and private sector. We are also committed to increase our power of climate change and environmental solutions. and we need to create solutions together. We are doing that, and we are ready to do more, but understanding what is resilience. Resilience is a real opportunity to be integrated, to be actors of creating strong capacities of development. And I think just collecting the words of the presenters that were here before, I just highlight something that you said: sustainability, opportunity, digital development, digital gaps that needs to be covered, social welfare. You mentioned all this. We are ready to support that. We are already doing that. In the last COVID-19, in this COVID-19 emergency situation and crisis, we have been able to reach 1 billion people in the world. 1 person out of 10 with our services. We reach these people. We really be able to impulse the action beyond the talk. And that is the way. I would like to tell you today that our call is a call for action, a wake-up call, and we need to change and to transform 3 things. 1, we need to transform our mind, our mindsets, our mentality, our behavior, our conduct in each city, in each country, in order to create more solidarity, more integration, more capacity to join forces, and to create humanitarian and developmental joint ventures. Number 2, it's very important to create systems that are not exclusive, systems that create glues to put all the resources together, to create systems that are following a plan that is a plan for all, and is an integrated plan, and systems that are thinking in long term. And the last point is we need to use the knowledge, education, knowledge in practice, creating knowledge is very important. We believe on that. We are believers. Because I know that you are believers, I invite you to wake up here, and in the body. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pato, for this encouraging speech. And now it's my pleasure, Mr. Ian Mckinnon, Director of Inclusive Design.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for staying. We've ran a little bit over, I know, so I'll be as quick as I can be, but I have some important things to say, so hopefully it's last but by no means least. My name is Ian Mckinnon. I am the Director of Inclusive Design for an organisation called the Global Disability Innovation Hub, and we are housed within University College London, UCL, in London in the UK, but we work internationally, predominantly in Asia and Africa at the moment. So we've heard quite a lot today talking about, resilience and policies and innovation. We've heard about leaving no one behind, the strong importance and necessary need for collaboration. We've spoken about the need for inclusive systems for all. And we've also spoken today a lot about the opportunities that exist, and there are opportunities for us to build back better. We've learned a tremendous amount over the past 2 to 3 years with everything that we've all been through. And we now have an opportunity to build back better. And the work that we do at the Global Disability Innovation Hub, as the name may suggest, is to focus on persons with disabilities and ensuring that persons with disabilities are central to those conversations. And again, I'll explain a little bit here about some of the opportunities that exist to build back better, not just for persons with disabilities, but ensuring that when we build back, it benefits all of us. That's essentially the definition of good inclusive design, which is the work that I focus on. So we've spoken a lot about the need for climate resilient infrastructure and how that must consider persons with disabilities. We must do it to get it right first time for everyone. And we are doing research currently, UK aid funded research, looking at the issues for persons with disabilities living in cities, predominantly in developing countries. If you'd like to know more about that research, please come and visit our stand in the expo. We are stand number 31. And we have lots of examples, some excellent images from photo diaries that our participants have taken part in, and we'll be happy to talk to you more there about our work and research. But coming through loud and clear in this research in some of these cities, including Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, Varanasi in India, Surakarta in Indonesia, Nairobi in Kenya, Freetown in Sierra Leone, and one more city that we've still to choose, so if you have an interest, please do speak to us. The feedback that's coming back to us from people living in these cities, NGOs, DPOs, working in these cities, the policymakers, the practitioners, the architects, the urban planners and designers working and living in these cities, is how persons with disabilities are most at risk particularly living in poor areas and informal settlements, and the severe impact that climate is having on persons with disabilities now, and the need for action. Some of those issues I'll just very lightly touch on. This is scraping the surface, but I think it's important to have some examples to think about and hopefully, start to get you thinking about some of these issues. Clearly, in informal settlements, a lack of basic infrastructure is a real issue, even in developed parts of cities where you still have open drains, where they're prone to flooding. Obviously, there's huge hygiene issues there, but from a mobility point of view, getting around the city, if you have a mobility impairment, if you're a wheelchair user, for example, getting around the city, incredibly difficult. No waste, no drainage. The issues of flooding are becoming more and more frequent, and we are seeing in our work, working with development partners and agencies, huge swathes of cities literally being built on 600mm high concrete plinths. And that's because the current infrastructure can't deal with the flooding that's taken place. Now, we can understand that we need to avoid flooding taking place, but if in future, think about it, if the infrastructure is rectified and can accommodate, then you've got huge swathes of the city sitting on literally on a raised level. So simply from an accessibility point of view, that's terrible for everyone. It creates really kind of inelegant, ugly solutions that don't work particularly well. It's also using huge amounts of concrete, which is not good for the environment and a sustainability point of view. Also, our research has highlighted some of the fundamental issues for people living in the city, looking at extreme weather, having to wait for public transport, which may not be accessible. There may be very limited accessibility options. If you're in extreme cold or even extreme heat, being unable to wait outside in those conditions for the accessible public transport offer, and you may not be able to afford things like a private hire taxi. So how do you get around? What is mobility like for you in the city? And again, if we do it well and inclusively, thinking about the needs of persons with disabilities, I can guarantee you it will benefit all of us. And there are examples that we can show you, again, if you want to come and speak to us to learn more about our work. Heavy rains becoming more frequent. We know about this already. It's happening. It's less easy to predict. It happens immediately without warning, and it's more frequent. Thinking about people who use hearing aids, the impact that's having on people, literally damaging, in some cases destroying the assistive technologies that they have. Even just the excessive noise that's happening more frequently on tin roofs and things. Being able to communicate is hard for all of us, but think about it if you have a hearing impairment, how difficult that can be. So, and I also want to touch on our mitigation. We're being, I think, there's a tendency to be very reactive. These issues are live, they're now, we know about them, and we want to react. We want to try and mitigate these things now. But I think we have to be more anticipatory, and that's come through in some of the talks today. We have to anticipate and have to think about what's needed and include the communities, and that includes persons with disabilities, to think about the solutions that we're proposing now. Thinking about increasing cycling, that's good for the environment, clearly, but thinking about the impact that can have on pedestrian environments, particularly for people with sensory impairments. It can have a really detrimental effect, and we want to avoid creating places that are no-go areas for certain members of the population. Electric cars, you think about that, okay, great. They have no noise. If you have a hearing impairment, again, these can be particularly difficult. Thinking about what does that mean for the urban environment we create. Removing cars entirely. I've heard a couple of talks already talking about removing private vehicles entirely for the environment. But what about people who need private vehicles? Some persons with disabilities and some other people require a private car to get around. So what does that mean, and how do we factor that into the discussion and the solutions that we're proposing? So we need to anticipate and not just react. We need to consider all citizens. How do we do this? Well, through collaboration. That's come through loud and clear. Breaking down these silos, not thinking about just sustainability over here and then inclusion over here. We need to think about these things together. Engagement is absolutely vital, and there are ways and means that you can engage effectively with persons with disabilities, and making sure that's done and that that's at the heart of our responses. I guarantee you your solutions will benefit as a result of that for everyone. Integrated policies and an intersectional approach is vital. Raising awareness of the issues. So I'm so glad that events like this, we were at COP26 in Glasgow, my home city, last year. I'm so glad that we're beginning to get more awareness of these issues at events like this, because it is so crucial. Building capacity, having the resource to do this, and innovation. We're called the Global Disability Innovation Hub because the sector is ripe. There's huge potential for innovation. And again, it's not just about a niche section of the market. It's just about disability. This will benefit your city in the entirety. And this is all set out. We have these policies in place. We're not advocating for more policies or plans. We have the SDGs, we have the New Urban Agenda. We now just need to do it. We're beginning to do it. We're looking at that. We're collecting that in our responses and our data and our research. If you'd like to know more about our work specifically, come and see us at our stand, 31. There is the Global Compact, the Cities for All Global Compact and campaign which exists. If you're not already familiar with that, check it out. And if you'd like to know more, please come and speak to me afterwards. I've tried to be quick. We're out of time, but hopefully we can maybe have one or two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mckinnon. So thank you, first of all, dear panelists, for your presentations. And now I have the pleasure to open the discussion to the floor. And we have two special guests. We would like to give the microphone to start with the questions. Thank you. Yes, would you present yourself quickly? Or?
I mean...
Yes, sure.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everybody. This is Fahad Al-Jubair, Mayor of Eastern Province, Saudi Arabia. بداية بعد التحية للجميع
I will try in a very brief manner. I think that all of the experts on the floor today have already said all of the key issues. I would like to concentrate on resilience, on urban resilience and spatial planning, development, implementation, geographic planning, as the main points in urbanization. Also to take up the issue of resilience of cities. The next issue is the finalization of resilience to increase the reach of programs in given regions and cities, and case studies for those programs' support of all services. Moreover, a very important issue is to create investment networks at various levels, building external companies with organizations that are specialized in urban resilience, investments in new technologies, in building technological cities, smart cities, financing through national banks, urban development, building capabilities, building resilience, also includes building such possibilities through collecting information regarding threats of climate change, geographical information regarding urbanization and housing, what threats we are facing in this aspect. The next issue is ensuring the provision of services to families that are trying to manage and cope with natural disasters, that live in unofficial and poor areas, the possibility of building resilience to be able to coincide with these threats that we are facing through better spatial planning and a better division building a sustainable plan taking into all aspects the economy, housing, land areas to ensure and protect the natural areas, forests, to ensure sustainable development, to ensure the building of adequate housing with the relevant criteria, improving infrastructure for resilience in order to combat these natural threats. While we are dealing with climate issues, in order to maintain the better implementation and resilience of the natural environment, the protection of green areas, and trying to prevent against any natural catastrophes. Building a fast response system to react against natural disasters is important. Fast response in the event of any threats to minimize loss, be it the loss of life, this is our approach as Saudi Arabia. I would like to thank you for inviting me to this conference. And as a result of all of our actions, I would like to say that we have been able to achieve good results in terms of sustainable development. We have good results in terms of climate change. We could move from place 46 to 31 in terms of sustainable development. In terms of the quality of our work and the building of infrastructure, we are now at place 34 and were recently at 36. Thank you very much.
Special guest, first row, second row, you have to.
Gràcies. Dzień dobry. Bon dia a tothom. Good morning in Catalan. Thank you very much to UN Habitat for giving us the word to add some words to react. I am here representing MedCities. MedCities is the network of 70 municipalities from across the Mediterranean region. This means 3 continents in a quite little space regarding the globe. And we work together. We are very similar, but we are quite different. But we work together to make more livable cities for everyone. And I like to say that mayors, in spite of many people think that they are not, mayors are human beings. I was a mayor, human beings. And mayors like and need to cry together. Because by working with each other, they learn a lot. I experienced that. So it's very important. And this is why networks like ours has a raison d'être, the very reason to exist. Because by working together, we learn faster, we act faster, and we are running out of time. So we are a humble example, very important example. We say that we are the Mediterranean local voice to the world, that we need to work together because exchanging knowledge is what municipalities need. They need increasing capacities, and this is what mid-cities do. And we do it with other networks, like Mediterranean Cooperation Alliance, which is a network of networks. So we are not alone. We need to work together. Let me give you some rapid examples. We help our cities to plan. We need to implement and to act, but all we need to plan. It's very important to plan, you know that, because you have a roadmap, a sustainable roadmap, as Medellin said, not changing with every local government, and also is a better way to raise funds for international funders if you have a plan. And it's very important also what we do is communicate with citizens and co-create with the citizens all this planning. It's a must. And this is some examples. We help Tunis, the capital of Tunisia, of the strategic planning linked to the SDGs, and we are doing with them in the Barcelona metropolitan area, we are doing their waste management plan. Or with Gabes in Tunisia, how to recover rainwater. Or with Tetuan, we made exploratory promenades with women and how to improve public spaces with the view of women. Or we in Tangier, we help the municipality to approach to the migrants to let them know what are their rights and the possibilities to capacitate. And we all, for example, we are helping Tripoli in Lebanon to do their geographical information system. So this is the kind of things that we do. But to do it more and better, we need to be at the table where decisions are made. So it's very important that states, we are working with states, with the Union for the Mediterranean, for example, but it's very important that states know that they are, and they have the right and the obligation to establish the agendas. But without local authorities, these agendas will not be implemented. Is not possible to be implemented. So we are here to say to you that Mid-Cities is open to all the municipalities, is open to all the networks, is open to work together with everyone, but we need to be heard. We need, as you know, more competencies, more resources, but we are ready, because in spite of not having enough competencies or enough resources, a mayor cannot say, I cannot do that. They have to do it, no matter what. So just to say thank you, we are here to cooperate. Mid-Cities is with you to cooperate to international agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have some extra minutes, so if there are questions from the floor, they're very welcome. Okay, so we've got 3 questions, 2? Right. I'll come. Srivastu? Oh, yeah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to raise my voice and some questions probably. I am Ajay Chandralal, representing Nepal. Nepal Urban Resilience Project. It's basically funded by the UK and ICF UK, and even the UCL is implementing partner. We have been working actually in Nepal in 3 major cities where this resilience context is being implemented. It changed political situation. In most of the towns we have aligned this legal policy and strategic framework towards this green, the green, resilient, inclusive development approach. However, we are still facing a lot of challenges in context of having access to resources. We have also brought the private sector on board in implementing this, resilient issues in terms of public-private dialogue. But still, I do have some question to the dignitaries from Medellin. I would like to congratulate him and the citizen of the nation to transform the city from a very vulnerable to a very, very resilient city in 2 decades time. I'm just wondering how the city can manage basically to have access to the land which basically was required to develop this public infrastructure on one hand, and at the same time, on the other hand, how they managed to have access to that huge resources that was required basically to develop those public infrastructure that facilitated the whole economic and even the social transformation of the town. I am very much confident looking at the presentation that of course the world is heading towards having a better and resilient urban future. Thank you, sir.
I think the question goes to you. Yeah.
Thank you. I would say that I was in Nepal just 2 months ago, and you have the same problem that everyone is experiencing. You know, good ideas, big commitment, no resources, and some kind of permanent looking at the bottlenecks. But you saw in some of the presentations, people were transforming a land that was dedicated to waste in a park. And that is possible. And there are good practices. Something that I would like to just mention to your point is, let's use better the knowledge that is belonging to all the group of multi-stakeholders. You need to discuss more with communities, academy, civil society, together with the government, and we need to include also the global perspective, because we have a lot of knowledge that is coming from other sites in the world. And you can learn from them. And then we can explore how to mining new resources in the ground. Because you have big resources in your countries, in your cities. The first resource is the community. The community is at the center, but they are the main resource. You need to discuss with them. You need to involve them. You need to create trust with them. And then you have the essentials. In each one of the cities, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we realized how important is the people doing cleaning, doing sanitation, doing health actions, doing transport. We need to protect the essentials too. And the investment and the use of the land needs to be transformed in a very long-term planning, but also seeing how to control climate and environmental variables, how to control employment variables, because we have to resolve the problem of the employment, and we need to also to see how to control variables that are related with welfare. All these together, and the productivity of the city needs to be a component of the solutions. And I think the mayors today, they were expressing very well, very good solutions that we need to pay attention for. But we are ready to join forces with you to create opportunities. And from our side, let's go beyond the obstacles together. And let's include practices that are good from other sides of the world.
Thank you very much. We're completely out of time, so we have actually no time, but we're going to do one more question, and I'm thanking already for the understanding of the technicians who are already sweating behind in backstage. So please, let's do one more and a quick answer. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'll be short. My name is Krishna Gewali. I'm also from Nepal. I work as a senior policy advisor to Nepal Urban Resilience Project. I also work in the government. My question... Make the question and we'll go there. Okay. My question is, in both the sessions, almost all the speakers spoke about the importance of digital governance. They also highlighted the significance of digital democracy. But I see a political economic risk and threat for the political authorities as well as the bureaucrats, because if you push for more digital governance, then there will be less opportunity for rent seeking, and they might also perceive digital governance as a threat for the continuity of their authority. So how would you address this scenario? Thank you.
Okay. Who would like to answer?
Quick one. Okay.
No, we can only do one more question. I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Raymond Poiser, and I'm from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Housing and Urban Renewal Portfolio in Jamaica. My question is to Mr. Ronald Jackson. Ronald, you spoke about the need for a cultural and behavioral shift. What are some of the initial steps that governments in the global south, and especially in SIDS,
can take to facilitate a shift in cultural and behavioral pattern in building resilience in cities?
Yes, would you like to answer first? And then...
Testing. So let me quickly take a stab at the two questions. This is why the whole idea around risk-informed approach is important. It's not that we should not pursue e-governance or digital, but we have to also look at the risk inherent in that. Similarly, all of us are talking about renewable energy. Rapid transition to renewable energy has an inherent risk. So it's really about how do we identify, understand that risk and the scenarios around it and build that into our process. But at the base of it, as Walter said, as I've said, that we need to engage the stakeholders. We need to engage the citizens in a dialogue around this particular process. They are equal partners in the transformation and transition. It's not that we have to run away from it, but engage the stakeholders. On the issue around the approaches to get people to change culturally in terms of their behavior. In my presentation, I talked about incentives and disincentives. What could these potentially be, right? Often we believe that it's only about the application and enforcement of the rule of law, which is important, certainly, in terms of how we design these and enforce them to get people to shift their practices. But I'm one who believes that, a great incentive, and as I've said to the colleague on digital, is making the citizens equal partners in the process, right? What we've seen certainly in the global south, as I said before, is that we've moved away from that community engagement around understanding the problem, co-creating solutions, which will build this particular ownership in the process and the need to change. My own professional experience is I went into communities to engage them on the reason why they should submit development applications, right? We had permit, we had enforcement notices served, we demolished. But I found out when I engaged the communities on a Tuesday and a Thursday night, the number of development applications that came in went up significantly. So it's really about, we must learn to start to engage as part of the process for cultural transformation and change. The communities have ideas, they have solutions, but they need a voice, they need an outlet to engage on the discourse. So we could go into more, but I'll leave it there given the time challenges we're facing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Denny?
Yes. Yes, about the cultural change, I want to remind something that say Esteban Leon this morning. They take in consideration urban agenda, SDG, Paris Agreement, but they adapt this agreement to the real life of the urban area, metropolis and cities. And to do that, we need the involvement of citizen and civil society organization, because if you want the continuity in the activity that you did and you will do, as Sergio Lopez said when he spoke about the assets confiscated to the narcos. We have the same problem in Italy, in Palermo, in Rome. We have assets confiscated to the mafia, and it's important the continuity, because it's easy to do something in one day and stop, but the continuity is important, and the continuity you can find with the trust of the citizen, the people, for your action as a public authority at a local development.
Thank you very much. We came to an end, and thank you also for your resilience. As somebody said before, I have no time left, so the wrap-up is going to be super fast. First of all, thanks to all our panelists and also the ones already in the audience for sharing their knowledge with us so generously. Thank you to UN Habitat for organizing this. Also thanks to the audience. It's clear that there's a lot of need of conversation. There's a need of collaboration. Maybe next time we can have also some state representatives to make the bridge that are also needed. Just summing up really short in German way, and probably I'm leaving some things out. Clear that crises are opportunity for a transformation to a more resilient society. We need common positive visions. We need to create hope. It's our responsibility, authorities, to include civil society, but it's also civil society's responsibility to get involved. We can only do this together through this multilateral approach. Challenges are coordination, priorities, more subsidiarities, more financing, and a clear commitment from all parts, also from the maximum authorities, the states. Not leaving anybody behind. Social justice is not only necessary, but it's also an opportunity. Innovation, digitalization, access to all this in an equal manner is absolutely necessary. We have to take into consideration changes of culture. It's not only about putting there new regulation and opportunities, we also need to make sure that there's a change in the mindset of the users. So altogether, it's our responsibility to create hope and above all, to go into action. Thank you very much.